You're looking at a live image of a firefight underway here in Newhall. Now, we're at the Valley Oaks Senior Apartment Complex, just off of Valley Street, just to the south of Lyons Avenue and to the south of Orchard Village Road, where you can hear Quint 126 just to the right of me. Basically, they're deploying some crews onto the roof of this structure. Now, this structure has burned twice in one day. There was a call when we were live at the Hart District Maintenance Building. There was a call for a structure fire here at the senior apartment complex. Units have now returned. After fire alarms started going off, the building started filling with smoke, and then they very quickly discovered that they had what's called a working attic fire. You can see fire crews trying to make access to the attic right now. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you have a better perspective, but as I zoom out, you'll see there's also firefighters on the roof. Now, both Quints 104 and 126 are here on scene, along with several engine companies from both Battalion 6 and Battalion 22, working on putting out this fire inside this senior apartment building. Now, this is Building A, which basically straddles Valley Street. If you're not familiar with the Newhall area, Orchard Village Road turns into Valley Street once you reach Lyons Avenue. So Lyons Avenue being the main corridor here in southern Newhall, running from Interstate 5 to the west and then to Newhall Avenue, Railroad Avenue to the center of the city. This apartment complex, once again, as I said earlier, burning twice in one day. Now, they had a working fire off a balcony earlier in the day to the front of the building. Now we're at the rear of the building where, as you can see, fire crews are working to make access to the attic of this building, where they believe there's fire inside the attic. And so this is what's called a working apartment structure fire. So they have an attic fire, which when you have firefighting in terms of these types of structures, an attic fire really isn't good news because it typically runs the full length of the building. They usually want to keep fires basically vertical and not horizontal. So you'll see that crew on top of the roof working to cut holes in the roof to ventilate the attic. They're going to keep that fire moving vertically, give it some air access, and keep it in that pocket. They want to keep that fire from spreading horizontally across the building, and at that point you have a really bad fire on your hands. So they're working very quickly to try to mitigate what's going on here. You can see they're going inside between multiple apartments, trying to locate the head of the fire, the bulk of the fire, and the source of it. But you can see they've been bringing in hose lines. Now, it's important to know what type of material they're putting on this fire once they make access to it. They're going to be basically, for the most part, putting on a mixture of water and foam, as you can see them inside of one of these dwellings here, but also on the roof where Quint 126, that Quint from Fire Station 126 near the mall, and you've got Quint 104 from Fire Station 104 off of Golden Valley Road, all of them basically taking to the roof to start cutting holes and venting it. I'm going to zoom out so you can kind of get a better perspective as to what this all looks like down here from the ground. It smells heavily smoky. You've got a lot of people outside after being evacuated from their homes. This, I'd say late at night, it's about 10 o'clock, but a lot of people have been evacuated. This entire building has been basically cleared. The fire alarm was going off. You had the alarm bells going off, as well as the electronic systems inside, the audible alarm and the visible alarm. So as you can see, this firefighter coming down the aerial ladder, the aerial cat, which is coming off of Quint 126. It was deployed to the roof. Just behind it, Quint 104 also deployed to the roof, as you see this firefighter making his way down that aerial cat. Now, most people kind of think that it's flat. It's like a flat walkway. It's not. I've been on top of one of these before. It's bars. and so it's very difficult to get up and down, but they use it to make roof access to buildings. As you can see, if I tilt down, you'll see the firefighters basically disembarking from the Quint itself. You can see Quint 104's aerial cat just behind Quint 126. And so for the most part, their venting procedure is done at this point in time. I have not heard if they've called knockdown yet. We're going to get on a radio as soon as we can to give you some more updated information. But back up to the left, you can see one of the remaining members of actually there's two more people on top of the roof after this gentleman comes off. This is the third structure fire response in Santa Clarita today. This is actually the third structure fire response in Santa Clarita in the last, I want to say 6 hours. So this building had a structure fire response earlier. We were live also at the Hart District Maintenance Building, which had a working fire. That second alarm situation now resolved thanks to move-up units from the Los Angeles County Fire Department and some of our home units from the Santa Clarita Valley. As you would know, a lot of our units are not here this week. They have units moved up to the area to respond to calls such as these. So, like I said, you might see engines that may not belong to the Santa Clarita Valley around town. I saw engine 3 coming out of 111's area. So, you had Patrol 128 also coming out of 111's area. So you have a lot of units not in places where they normally are right now, dealing with a multitude of situations, including 2 working structure fires, one of them being a second alarm, and you had a small brush fire, and you have a whole multitude of heat exposures and heat-related incidents taking place across the Santa Clarita Valley today. It's been a very busy day for first responders from the Los Angeles County Fire Department, Sheriff's Department, and the American Medical Response as they work to grapple with kind of this heavy load of assignments here in the Santa Clarita Valley today. But if we zoom into this apartment here, you'll see they've been making access to these units here and there. Taking a look at the attic. Now, is this related to the earlier fire? Unknown. It's unknown at this time. Now, I can tell you it's very rare to have 2 fires in one place and it not being related, but right now they're working to investigate that. That first response came in so there was a structure fire response here at 6:08 p.m. This response coming in at 9:30. So about 35 minutes ago is when this most recent response came in. So 2 times in the same building on opposite ends of the building. And so right now fire crews working with the TI. So if you can see that device right there, I'm going to try and double up so you can see a little bit more of that TI. There's a device right there in that firefighter's hand that is called the TI. It's a thermal imager. Basically what they're using that for is they want to see if there's any heat signatures behind the stucco, behind the walls, and they want to look and see if there's any fire basically hiding within the structure. So we're following that firefighter holding the TI. I'm going to turn off the doubler. We were seeing that firefighter holding the TI a second ago and basically using that to see if there's any trapped heat. So if there's any fire trapped within the walls, they're going to basically comb this entire building from head to toe, from foundation to roof, back and forth, from Alpha to Zulu, or Alpha to Delta. They're going to look at every single side of the building and take a look and see if there's any fire trapped in the attic, in the ceilings, in the walls, in the trees, if there's any embers that flew off the building into the trees. They're looking at all of that. Now, when the first engine to arrive on scene earlier and the first response to this building arrived on scene, they saw smoke showing with fire showing from a balcony. So that balcony being what we believe to be on the other side of the building. Now, fast forward 3.5 hours, and fire crews are back for another response on quite possibly the opposite side of the building. And so you can see right now they're working on getting some additional tools to take a look at the walls. They are going to be most likely having to open up the walls and start basically cutting it away, doing a little bit of mop-up and demo work on the wall to open it up and look at the insulation. The insulation is where you have a lot of embers that hide and really can erupt very quickly and very suddenly. So they're going to be looking at a lot of those different things to try to make sense out of all of this. Where did this all begin? What happened? How extensive is the damage? Is there any extension into other units, any neighboring units? They're going to be looking at all of those things as we double up to see kind of what this firefighter is working on here. We have that luxury of having a zoom lens, so we can kind of look at things pretty well from where we're standing right now. And it looks to be a possible, one of those GFI outlets, one of those outdoor GFI outlets is what he's looking at. Now, to give you the multitude of resources here at the scene for this apartment structure fire, it's going to get you a different response than the commercial structure fire we saw earlier. It's going to give you a different response than a typical house fire. An apartment structure fire gives you a much larger augmented response than a typical house would. And so for those of you who live in a single-family home, it's going to get you a different response than a multi-family or multi-occupant type dwelling like an apartment building. But to give you an idea of who's on scene, you got Battalion 4, Battalion 6, Engine 124 from Stevenson Ranch, 126 from the center of Valencia, Engine 3, not from here, 73 from Newhall, 76 from the west side, 73 from Newhall, Quint 104 from the center of the city, Quint 126 from the mall area, and Safety 10. So you've got a couple of resources here on the assignment that don't normally respond to this area, but a lot of our local resources from Battalion 22 and Battalion 6 are working this fire. And so there are some members on Quint 126 basically climbing up the aerial cat, going up to the rooftop to cover it with tarping. Now, we talked about that earlier with structure fire number 1 out of 3. We're going to kind of move back over to where they are. But they usually will bring tarp up. The first firefighter carrying the tarp is on the roof at this point in time. I'll go back to him in a second. But they basically carry the tarp up to cover it from any rain or damage or anything like that, from anything going into the building itself. As I said earlier, that firefighter kind of having a little bit of trouble going up that aerial cat. We've been on it before, and it's very, very difficult to get up it. It's basically like taking a big ladder, laying it sideways along the roof, and then having to kind of climb up it almost, not necessarily vertically, but at a really odd angle. And it's somewhat slippery at times. But crews making their way up to the roof just behind this tree here. You can see one of their lights lighting the way for us. That's a helmet light, and they do have their chainsaw. They were using that to cut away the roof to do their venting procedures. But they've been on top of the roof for quite a period of time. With a typical apartment structure fire, you're going to get 2 quints, which allows them to get on top of that roof, open it up, which is what they're doing right now. They're peeling back some of the tile. As we zoom in, you'll see they're peeling away some of the rooftop. And essentially they're going to be replacing it with some tarping. And so they're going to have to basically staple down that tarping, try to cover the roof as best they can in case it rains, which, as we all know, rain is kind of a figment of our imaginations at this point in time in the year, with a very exceptionally dry year, especially for firefighters who are having to battle a lot of brush fires as they crop up around the county, around the state, and around the nation. But crews really working a multitude of major incidents today. This is the 3rd structure fire, at least. This is one of 4 incidences involving the Los Angeles County Fire Department. You got the 3 structure responses, and you've also got the brush response off of the 10,600 block of Solid Canyon Road, which that happened, and the fire here earlier happened at the same time as the fire at the Hart District Maintenance Building. All of those happening about the same time. So it really does put a stress on resources, but very quickly they were recovering, getting the resources back in play, along with their counterparts from the American Medical Response and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, having to grapple with the same situations with a different type of responsibility for those situations, but they're also grappling with a homicide investigation taking place right now under the Soledad Canyon Road Bridge, just to the west of Camp Plenty Road. Right now you're hearing the chainsaws coming up as they work to clean up some of the venting here. And you can see they're cutting that square. They're going to take a look inside, see what they see, if there's any trapped fire, any smoke coming out of it. They're going to take a look at that, all from here. So you can kind of peer in there in that hole, see if he sees anything. They may cut another hole somewhere else and take a look to see if there's any more flame inside. Taking place just below them, though, is a bit of a mop-up procedure, a little bit of demolition going on here. They're having to really tear apart some of the insulation. They're going to be most likely throwing it down below into the bushes as they work to clear out some of the rubble, clear out some of the soot, and start cleaning up the operation here. So as I zoom out, you'll see two parts of the operation taking place. You've got multiple people out of the building. The entire building's been evacuated. No one has gone back inside at this point in time. So you really have to feel for a lot of people who are outside their homes. It's hot, it's late, and this is not what they signed up for tonight. And so a lot of people, you know, this is time for bed, as it is for everybody. And it's really difficult to have to kind of grapple with the situation, but especially because if there is any damage to the building itself, structurally, or any damage inside, smoke damage, it's going to be a very long time for anybody to reoccupy some of these units. And so you really have to feel for them, those people who are having to deal with this while, you know, a lot of us are in the comfort of our own homes. It's one of the hottest days of the year, and tonight's temperature is really not supposed to really be that great. I can kind of give you an estimate as to what the temperatures look like tonight, but it's only supposed to get down to 79. We'll be lucky if it gets below 81 degrees tonight, so it's very warm. It's not ideal conditions for people to be outside of their homes at this time of night. So fire department working on that. If anyone is displaced by this fire, they will dispatch the Red Cross. The American Red Cross will come in to help people with hotel rooms and things like that. They'll come in and help them with any shelters. If they need to open up a shelter, a temporary one for the occupants of this building, they will do that. There's a whole multitude of resources and a multitude of procedures that are being followed here that are more than what meets the eye. More than what you see on your screen right now is taking place behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, you've got two battalion chiefs, Battalion 22 and Battalion 6, who are working to organize the units. One of them is going to be the incident commander, one of them is going to be the operations chief. The operations chief calling the shots in terms of getting people to work, getting certain tasks taken care of, getting certain obstacles mitigated. Battalion 6 is going to be coordinating between agencies, but also relaying all of this to LA County's Fire's Command and Control. The 911 operator is really helping to get these resources in play for these people who have been displaced from their homes. So you have a whole series of different things happening. Speaking of those resources, you also have Southern California Gas on scene now. You've got Edison also coming to the scene. So you've got utilities being started for this as a result of the gas being shut off, as a result of the power being shut off. And so you have everything in play to help the people being displaced right now. As I always say, and I sometimes forget to say, if you have any questions about what's going on here, feel free to ask them in the comment section. I will do my best to answer them. To be honest, I have not looked at them yet, but I will look at them now. Now's your chance to ask any questions that I haven't answered. Some people asking, do we know if they're going to be allowed in? Ron Tom asking that question in the comments. No word yet if anyone's going to be allowed in, but I am seeing quite a bit of smoke coming off the building right now, and I'm smelling it too, and so they may have hit a pocket of something. The crew right here working to kind of locate it along with the crew on top of the roof, but there is a little bit of smoke coming off the building now that they were looking at. So we have a captain from Fire Station 73 asking people if they know who the occupants of one of the dwellings is, and they have a couple of questions for that person. Someone was saying that they were possibly taken to the hospital earlier as a result of the earlier response. But the captain trying to kind of get in contact with the people who live in these apartments as we take a look at the crew from Quint 126 and Station 73 on top of the roof here, looking at some of the venting holes that they have made as they try to bring this to a safe resolution. Now, over to the left of the building, we've got the crew from Fire Station 73 working to repack the engine. So you can see some hose line on the ground that's being dragged back. They're working on folding that all up on top of the engine. Top of the deck here, you can see the firefighter working on packing away some supplies and tools. They're getting 73 ready to be put back into service and being made available to respond to other situations. So it's also worth noting that when these situations take place, it does disrupt the flow of resources going to situations here in the Santa Clarita Valley, but they have something called a move-up matrix. What that move-up matrix is they can move resources all around the county. This is a very, very large county with very high amount of fire stations. They're able to allow some stations to go empty to basically cover other areas, as we see them dropping some insulation off of the roof. So something we talked about earlier that they would be doing is digging out the insulation and dropping it off into the bushes. And that's basically what they're doing right now on top of the roof, is pulling some of the insulation out and then basically dropping it off the roof as part of the mop-up and demo procedures. But back to that move-up matrix, and kind of like a dog, very short attention span. But they're able to move up resources across the county and move up resources from Locking out of Flint Ridge, Palmdale, Lancaster, Calabasas, El Monte, all sorts of different places around the county, move up those resources to basically allow them to fulfill the role of responding to scenes and situations here in Santa Clarita as they work to put out this fire and basically make the situation safe. They have resources that are able to respond here to ensure that no call goes unanswered. That's why we have 18 fire stations here in Santa Clarita. That's why we have 2 battalions. That's why we have that agreement with the county fire department to allow those types of resources to respond. So really they have all their bases covered. Earlier it was a bit hairy when you had the 2 structure fires, one of them being a second alarm response and a brush fire response. It did get a little hairy, but they were able to basically move up enough resources to cover the valley. We had Battalion Chief Nick Bercuda working as incident commander of the incident at that maintenance building at the Hart District headquarters, who was able to really move things around, work with LA County Command and Control to get resources here, get them in the right positions, and when that fire call here occurred around 6 o'clock p.m., he was able to get some resources freed up from that situation and get them here in a timely manner. And so you're seeing the process at play. You're seeing the process unfold here. You're seeing the process work. They're able to get these resources here. They're getting the apartments cleaned up. They're getting the balconies cleaned up. You can see the firefighters working to get a lot of the wall, a lot of the crumbled structure itself that they were able to pull back. And that's a firefighter from Engine 3, not from here. I have to give those people credit, honestly, because they respond to calls here and there, and they really do put themselves on those calls as quickly as they can. They're very, very eager to jump on those calls as quickly as possible to help out their teammates here in Battalion 6 and Battalion 22, teammates who are hurting right now. You know, you don't see a lot of familiar firefighters right now because, you know, they are dealing and grappling with the tragedy, that tragedy at Fire Station 81. And so you have a lot of these resources here in their place to help them out and to make sure that our homes are safe and our valley stays safe, and that if anything does arise, like these apartment structure fires, that they're able to jump on them as quickly as possible. One tool here on the scene, which is going to be right here, is the blower. The blower is able to exchange fresh air for smoky air. It's able to basically draw a lot of that smoke out and push it out of the building and start, you know, clearing out the smoke and starting to kind of mitigate a lot of that smoke damage that you would expect to happen as a result of these apartment structure fires. But that's going to do it for me here at the scene of what they're calling the Valley incident. I'll try to get you some more updates in the comment section below after I talk to the battalion chiefs, but I can tell you they have a lot going on right now. And we'll talk to them in maybe an hour or so and see what we can find out. But that's going to do it for me here live at the scene of this apartment structure fire in Newhall, reporting live just off the 24,700 block of Valley Street. This is Austin Dave.